Today, we will talk about what developers need to know about AWS networking. Let's start. The first question is where, geographically, your application will sit. We can have legal, financial and other reasons. I chose the London region for that demonstration. Developers should be familiar with the regions that AWS offers, so next, a VPC or virtual private cloud will be created for your app. The VPC is inside the region. Each region contains at least 3 availability zones, and it is good practice to choose at least 3. Then, your application will utilize 3 public subnets and 3 private subnets. Let's assume that the application will use 2 servers. You need to deploy the Application Load Balancer or ALB to balance the load, but often, in AWS documentation, you can also find it as ELB. To improve that solution, auto-scaling group is recommended. If you want to know why, you may leave your comments below. It's time to focus on routing traffic to your application. Internet Gateway or IGW helps in moving traffic between your VPC and the internet. NAT Gateway is responsible for traffic from your server to the internet. That means no one can initiate traffic from the internet to reach NAT Gateway and then go to your server. The route table is the next element. AWS allows us to associate one route table per subnet, but the route table can be associated with multiple subnets. For example, we can create one public router table and associate it with all public subnets. One private router table can be associated with all private subnets. In our case, we can associate one private route table with private subnets, but we cannot associate one public route table with all public subnets. Do you know why? The Network Access Control List, or NACL, is responsible for allowing or denying inbound or outbound traffic at the subnet level. NACL represent a stateless firewall. Usually, we associate one NACL per all public subnets and one NACL per all private subnets. Security Group or SG represent a stateful firewall and will be attached to the specific network interfaces. SG allows specific traffic. Let's examine application traffic. Traffic from the internet first reach IGW, then reach subnet NACL where ALB is. If NACL allow traffic, then packet reach security group attached and the SRV. The developer must understand Route 53, how to create domain names, DNS records and aliases. CloudTrail, CloudWatch and VPC flow logs must know in and out for monitoring and troubleshooting. Your application needs to have access to AWS Storage S3. How to connect there? Via Internet. As you can see flow on the diagram, traffic flow from the EC2 instance to the S3 bucket via the Internet, which is not desired in many cases. To improve security, you will use VPC gateway endpoints to S3, and another benefit is not build. Let's talk about how we can speed up the distribution of static and dynamic web content such as HTML, CSS, JS, and image files for users. The solution is CloudFront. The developer must know how to configure CloudFront for dynamic content from the web server or static content from S3. You must be familiar with AWS Global Accelerator if you want to improve the availability and performance of TCP and UDP traffic for your application and reduce the risk of DDoS attacks. Quick review to the load balancer topic. AWS offers 4 types of load balancer. The developer will use mainly application and/or network load balancer, unlikely classic load balancer as is a legacy solution. Gateway load balancer is out of the developer's scope. As a developer, you should be knowledgeable about VPC endpoints. I mentioned before VPC gateway endpoints to S3, but we also have interface VPC endpoints. You must understand VPC endpoints and private links. Those services should be a must-know by developers. SaaS solutions extensively use private link. Let's discuss AWS Lambda. Despite appearances, deploying AWS Lambda requires a deep understanding of networking. You will choose whether to deploy Lambda inside or outside VPC. Next will be API Gateway, private and public, and it is obvious why you, as a developer, must know this service. Often, the developer is involved in connecting applications between 2 or more VPCs, so being familiar with VPC peering will be profitable for you. I skipped the topic of VPN and transit gateway solutions, as they mainly relate to a cloud network engineering job. Lastly, the developer must know IPv4 and IPv6. So that's it for AWS networking. If you have any questions, drop them below, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more insights.